Shortbox Nation? Hello again. Welcome back, and thanks for pressing play today. If you're brand new, welcome to the show. My name is Bodder, and this is the Shortbox Podcast, the comic book talk show that brings you the best conversations about your favorite comics with the people that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making them. This is episode 478, and today I'm joined by Seamus Ryan, or better known as MC Esoteric. He's a rapper, producer, and comic writer all rolled into one. Eso is a Boston native who established himself in the music scene in 2001 alongside DJ and producer 7L. Together, they released more than 5 albums as the duo 7LES. Esoteric also makes up 1/3 of the hip-hop supergroup Czarface, a team-up consisting of Eso, 7L, and the graphic designer Lamar Supreme, and of course, the Inspected Deck of the Wu-Tang Clan. Czarface was first formed in 2011 and has released 5 projects to much acclaim, including collabo albums with Ghostface Killah, Kool Keith, and the late great MF Doom. Now, if you thought 2 rap groups weren't enough, you can also find Eso's signature style of witty punchlines and perplexing storytelling on many albums as a member of the Army of the Pharaohs, the Demigods, and the East Coast Avengers collectives. And that's not even counting the numerous solo projects that he's produced and released himself. Now, you might be asking, what does this have to do with comic books? Well, I ask you, have you ever seen a Czarface album? The group's brand and imagery is steeped in Silver Age comic book lore, thanks to the group's in-house artist, Lamar Supreme. And it's not just for show. Throughout the years, Czarface has released several comic books and companion graphic novels to go along with several of their albums and projects, which brings us to the group's latest comic book offering, a new 5-issue limited series that's being published by Z2 Comics. It's called Czarface Stress Fracture, featuring Esoteric on writing duties and artist Philippe Flores bringing the visuals. But before we get into that, I want to shout out the official sponsor of the Short Box, which is Gotham City Limit, Jacksonville's premier shop for comics, toys, collectibles, and more. Check out this episode's show notes for a link to their online store at GothamCityLimit.com, where you can buy and shop for exclusive comics and merch. And lastly, I want to dedicate this episode to all of the Short Box patronies, aka the friends, family, and loyal supporters that make up the Short Box Patreon community. If you want to support what I do, if you want to help me keep this show going, I like replacing this light behind me that is going crazy, in exchange for some great rewards, then consider joining the Short Box Elite at patreon.com/shortbox. And a big shout out to all of the patronies out there. And without further ado, Shortbox Nation, let's welcome MC Esoteric to the show. What up, Eso?
What's up, man?
Eso, I've got a light show going off in the back for you. I don't know what's going on with this light in the back.
Yeah, that's okay.
But it's bugging. So I've been rattling this question in my head all week, and I think the streets would also like to know too. Is MC Esoteric the most dog-friendly rapper out there? Like, is there another rapper that loves dogs as much as you do?
I would say no. I'd say I'm the front runner there. That's my lane, man. That's my lane. I'm possessive of it too. I think that's my category. But I wish it was everyone's category because dogs deserve the best attention man can give.
Yeah, I was scrolling your Instagram, and I mean, it's, excuse the pun, it's littered with dog videos. I understand that you also watch a lot of dogs for help them get adopted. And obviously, your old dog Logan, who's all over your 4th solo album. I'm like, yo, I don't know if there's anyone else in rap that cares this much about the canine species, but I think you might have some competition because I recently watched a video. I think it was from a amateur hour at the Apollo, old video of this rapper named, I think his name was like Doc.
Dog's name is Threat.
He's rapping, but he's also got the dog involved in the show. And I mean, you posted it, so I mean, you obviously know what I'm talking about. But how incredible is that video? I mean, he had this dog doing literally the moonwalk on stage.
It's really strange. I saw that. I had a real emotional reaction to it, like just joy, but then I was like welling up too because it really hit me right where it counts, and because I think it's combining hip hop in its most pure form and dogs, which are 2 major loves of mine, and I think that happened in '95, but I think that clip had just surfaced and I saw it and I was just blown away by it. And connecting it to me, I was on Animal Planet with my dog once on a show called Yeah, called Superfetch
Hmm.
with my old dog Logan, where we were doing something similar to that, and it was nowhere near, nowhere near as good as Doc and Brett's routine. That was just great, but yeah, I think that's been my appearance on Animal Planet's been scrubbed from the internet, thankfully, but it
Not
was fun.
lost media. Some lost
Yeah,
media we got to find.
yeah.
So what came first, your love of comics or hip hop?
I would say my love of comics first, because as soon as I could read, I was digging
Hmm.
into comic books for
Do you
sure.
do you remember like your first comic or the one like what's your first conscious memory of reading a comic or having a comic?
At this point, this is it's probably not my first comic, but the Secret Wars series.
Mm. Yeah, classic.
Yeah, Secret Wars 1 comes to mind. Early G.I. Joe comics, early Thor, early Spider Man. When I say early, I guess I mean mid 80s, but so, the introduction of Beta Ray Bill,
Yeah, Walt Simonson.
you know, uh, Dark Knight, Frank Miller Batman.
Hmm.
Those were big books then, but I went further back, so I would try to collect the first appearance of the second wave of X-Men.
Hmm.
So the run from I think it was issue 94 to about 102 or something like that. And I was collecting those, and first appearance of Colossus, and I think
Yeah,
Storm, and
the giant size X-Men Onward team.
yes, exactly. And I dug as far back to my earliest comic was Spider-Man #4, which is the
Damn.
first appearance of Sandman, and then Spider-Man 5, which was second appearance of Doctor Doom.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's his. And of course, that was the '60s, so I wasn't alive then. So, but I got into all waves of comics back then.
How much of your original collection do you still have? Because I feel like it is synonymous with a lot of like, collectors of that era that, their mom threw out their comics, basement flooded, lost it to, someone stole it. I mean, how much of your original collection is still intact?
Yeah, just the Spideys really, and I had sold some X-Men for studio time.
Hmm.
Um, I have a lot that I've tracked back, but just the spy. I used to have a ton, but I have a song called off of Czarface's Artificial Intelligence, a song called Mama's Basement, and I kind of detail how my my love for comics, but then in the last verse, I was looking for the comics that I left at my mom's house, and she said, "You sold those a long time ago because you were trying to get money to impress a girl or something." And that had a lot of truth to it at the time because I was tapped into comics for a very very long time, and then girls took over, and then comics came back.
Par for
Comics
the
made a
course. Yeah.
yeah. So here we are.
Yeah, I'm actually wearing a speaking about Dark Knight, I'm wearing a Frank Miller Daredevil T-shirt
Oh,
from
nice.
this brand I really like. Big shout outs to Giant Size VCR. I'm wearing it because I've been bumping. Obviously, I've gone through like the entire Czarface catalog. I've been going through your solo albums, and you got a song on your first debut album, Ego Clapper, called Frank Miller Tank Killer. I've been bumping that all day, so I've
Oh
had
yeah.
that on the brain. But I said that you grew up in Boston. You're a Boston native. Like, what were some of the shops and places that you were that you were getting your comics from?
Yeah, my first place was called Gerard's, which was just it was in Dorchester, a place called Adams Village. Dorchester is a borough of Boston, and it's called Gerard's, and it was a breakfast place, but it was also like a deli, and it had a spinner rack, and that's where I would get my comics first. My grandmother would give me a couple quarters or whatever, and I could go play video games at the
Yeah.
bowling alley next door at Boston Bowl, or I could use those to buy comics. And I wound up buying comics. I remember vividly buying Web of Spider-Man #1.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Is that the one with the chrome cover or like the aluminum cover?
no, they weren't doing
Oh
aluminum
no,
covers
you're right.
yet
You're
back
right.
then. It has a painted aesthetic to it.
Oh yeah, there's the Michael Vest, Charles
Exactly.
Vest,
Oh,
painted cover. Yeah, with
yes,
a
yeah,
black
yeah.
suit. Yeah, classic.
Yeah, so that Gerard's was the place, and Million Year Picnic in Cambridge was another place that I go to. I actually was there for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, a signing with Eastman and Laird. I went in there, I bought the
Wow.
book, didn't know anything about it. I remember them signing the book in like silver ink. I don't know if it was a Sharpie or what, but that's a comic I still wish I had.
Oh yeah, it's more of a pretty
Where
penny
else?
now.
There's a Newberry Comics, which is a major staple now. I think there was just one store back then. Where else? White Hen Pantry, which is another place, another convenience store thing where you can get chips and soda, coffee, whatever, but you can also get comics off a spinner rack, you know?
Yeah.
New England Comics. There was a lot of places, really, but
Okay.
Gerard's right in Dorchester was where
Was
I
the
was
one.
getting most of my books.
It's funny you bring up Eastman and Laird because I've got the first issue of Stress Fracture here with me. I read it this morning, and that was one of the comparisons I had where I'm like, man, this has got a certain grit to it, a certain like underground indie comic flavor. And my mind immediately went to like the TMNT1 and what Laird and Eastman did for like that underground black and white comic zine boom of like the 80s. Who are some of your favorite writers or comic creators that were shaping your fandom at a young age?
I would say Mike Zeck.
Oh, gee. I don't feel like he does not get enough credit. Like,
Yeah,
some of the most memorable like images of like the Doctor, Secret. I mean, how many iconic covers from Secret Wars has been reused? I mean, hell, from Czarface and right? Like you guys have
right.
used a
Yeah,
lot too.
we've homaged a few of those.
Yeah.
There's so many, the staples, John Byrne, Jack Kirby's art, of course,
Yeah.
Frank Miller, Alan Moore, um, Ramita, there's so many, and I think back then when I was reading Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, or Web of Spider-Man, or Uncanny X, whatever it was, at that point, I was just digging into the characters and the stories and the action and the villains and the storyline. I wasn't so dialed into who did what.
Sure.
And then as time went on, it became more interesting when you saw a particular art style that you really gravitated towards, and you knew who did that, or the what do you call it? Like the dynamics of like a Jack Kirby fist going through the screen like this, or something a little bit more subtle or more painted like Bill Sienkiewicz. Or it became really interesting to follow different artists in fun, and you could everything wasn't at your fingertips then either. You'd have to get a Wizard weekly, or
Yep.
one of the trade magazines to keep up with who's doing what, and easily reference something. And
Yeah.
now it's a little bit easier. Of course,
Sure.
you knew Chris Claremont like reinvigorated the X-Men, but there were other things that you couldn't just easily pull up at your fingertips unless you went into a shop or you had a 1,000 long boxes or short boxes
Sure.
right at your fingertips.
Well said. And then I guess how did you go? What was the transition from comic book head to hip hop head? Because I was reading some articles and bios for you. I understand that like basketball was a big catalyst and vehicle for you getting into hip hop. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. This was in Boston. My father used to take me to courts right in this area called the Fens in Boston, and there was a lot of the BNBL played there, the Boston Neighborhood Basketball League. There's a lot of heavy hitters that were on the court, and he was of the mindset that if he threw me out there, it would sharpen my game, kind of a steel sharpen steel type of
Yeah.
situation. But I wasn't steel; I was more plastic, but he was trying to get me into more of a vibranium esque
Yeah.
type of, and he was putting me in the right area to do that. However, courtside, banging out of the boom boxes, there would be Public Enemy and Gangstar and Tribe Called Quest, Ultramagnetic MCs, whatever it was, and I just really, really fell in love with everything I was hearing, and I fell in love with getting absolutely dominated on the court every time I went out there. uh, and I think that's when I started gravitating towards to hip hop before I even thought about like rhyming or anything like that.
Did you see? I guess early on. Did you see early on that that overlap between hip hop and comics? Because I feel like now in retrospect, I mean, maybe even like during, but I mean, in retrospect, comics and hip hop have been crossing over, referencing each other for like years, right? Like the obvious example, present company included, but a lot of people point towards, MF Doom, but I'll add like Jean Grey and, Method Man and Ghostface were making, Marvel references. I mean, hell, even what Eminem's, what was that song? Guess Who's Back? Or yeah, Guess Who's Back? He's doing the superhero homage. So I mean, there's so many examples of comics and hip hop crossing over, but at that young age, like, did you see that? Like, what did you see between the two art forms? Like, what was that Venn diagram overlap?
There were a few. I think it was more in the energy and attitude that kind of had a they. There were parallels between comics and hip hop, where you had an over exaggerated sense of confidence and cartoonish violence and braggadocio. You'd have the spectacular Spider-Man or the astonishing X-Men or Incredible Hulk, whatever it might have been, and uh, I think, as far as references, the Fat Boys referenced Spider-Man probably
Ah,
in
yeah.
maybe 80, 85 or something. Peter Parker, known as Spider-Man. There's a whole little story about Spider-Man, and Chuck D of Public Enemy referenced Prince Namor, the Submariner, way back then too. There were some odd references here and there, but I think it really was the overall
Hmm.
attitude and the sense of escapism, where
Hmm.
when you're on the mic, you're unbeatable, and when you're in the armor with the arc reactor on,
Hmm.
you're invincible. There are parallels there, and that's stuff that you need to help get you through life when the caffeine's not working. If
Yeah,
you're playing hoops and you're in layup lines, you want the radio, you want something in your headphones to help motivate you, give you a little extra gas, and that would be where hip hop would come in.
well said. I guess in your opinion, why do you think it's like all of these references we just made, definitely all are Marvel references. Why do you think hip hop leans so heavily into like making Marvel references or the relationship with Marvel? I mean, hell, even Nas's company Mass Appeal just did that Marvel crossover. Like, what is it about Marvel, do you think, that speaks to hip hop heads? So
That's a great question, because I'm one of the people that have always I've never saw the divide
sure,
so
it's all comics, right?
pronounced. Yeah, I love Batman as much as I love Spidey, and Superman as much as I love Daredevil, or what. They're all telling different stories, and for every Secret Wars, you'll have a Crisis on
Hmm.
Infinite Earths,
Hmm.
and for
Hmm.
certain things rhyme here and there, and I feel like a reference to Marvel characters in hip hop being more prevalent. I'd like to figure out why that might be. But I mean, if you take Raheem the Vigilante, he came
Hmm.
out in, like, I think it was maybe 1990. He had a record called "You're on Notice," and that sampled the theme from Batman, which was dope. Then I was like, oh wow, this guy's rapping over Batman, like the
Hmm.
original theme, and so there are definitely instances of DC getting into
Sure.
the hip hop sphere,
I think
for lack of a better phrase. I know I'm gonna as I jog my memory, I'm gonna be
yeah, yeah.
interrupting this interview with
No,
more
no, for sure.
references, more
Yeah, for
DC references, because I mean, how many times has someone rapped Maniac with Brainiac? So Brainiac's just getting in by the virtue of his namesake.
yeah,
But I think if he's in this new Man of Tomorrow
mhm,
Superman movie coming out in a few years, then you're going to see his name
for sure.
popping up in references everywhere.
Yeah, you heard it here, folks. Go ahead and invest in that first appearance of Brainiac because the bars are about to be plentiful. If I might add to that, I think Marvel being situated, the original Marvel universe being situated in New York, in these like real places, whether it's Peter Parker in Queens and, I guess Captain America in Brooklyn. Like, I think the fact that it's situated in real places that, a lot of these, the golden age of hip hop and, the New York City bias, I think that goes a long way too. When you can read a comic and be like, oh, I know that place, or wow, this character's from the same, borough that I'm from. I think Marvel went a long way. And then also, I think DC, you think about your Wonder Woman's, your Supermans, your, like these, like, these gods, these mythological almost legendary status. I think there's something about like a character like Spider-Man that feels a little more real, that you can relate to. You know, that relatability. I think probably goes a long way too.
I agree. I think that might have something to do with it. That's something I didn't consider, but I know when I'm actually in New York and I'm staying somewhere in Hell's Kitchen, it's like it's
Yeah.
exciting. I might see Daredevil
Yeah.
walk by me or something. But also when I'm in New York, everything's named Gotham this or Gotham that.
True. Yeah, you
There,
got a good point. That's a good.
there
Yeah.
are there are examples of both, but you know,
Yeah.
I don't know where Central City is or Star
Hmm.
City is or some of these other DC places in
Yeah.
relation. But I know there's Gotham in New York. But yeah, you make a good point.
So speaking on the topic of New York Comic Con, and real quick, I want to mention, I want to say that I'm so glad that you mentioned, you know, just kind of like getting giddy at like staying in Hell's Kitchen, because I stayed in Hell's Kitchen for New York Comic Con, and I was telling my wife, I was like, hey, I'm going to apologize right now. I'm going to say Hell's Kitchen in every single sentence because of the Frank Miller Daredevil connect, and she got mad annoyed by it. But
Right.
on the topic real quick of New York Comic Con, which I had a chance to meet you there, as well as the artist Philippe Flores, who's doing the interiors for a stress fracture. But you were able to perform Z2. You know, the publisher had an after party. You were there rapping about Spider-Man, rocking a really dope ass Venom jacket, only to have Venom's co-creator come out, Todd McFarlane, the Todd father, come out mid-set and dap you up. And I got to know, what was that like? And have you ever met other, I guess, like comic legends or icons? Have you had a chance to meet some of like your childhood favorites?
I have a few, but rocking that show, performing at that show in that unique environment of a
Yeah.
classic car club. I'm
Hmm.
surrounded by vintage cars and a big garage that's like the size of an airplane hangar. So the acoustics are something I'm trying to figure out at the
I
same
word.
time as I'm performing. And I'm looking at the crowd, and then I see Todd McFarlane there, and I happen to have this Venom jacket on, and it was just the best timing it could really be. And in terms of an actual hip hop and comics um, collision, I'm performing with Cool Keith and the
Yeah.
Ultramagnetic MCs, and Todd McFarlane's there. I mean, you have just absolute legends of both worlds right there, and it was quite a moment. Um, but yes, I've met. I remember meeting Stanley. I made sure
Wow.
my son came with me to meet Stanley because he's got a real thing for comics and this
That's
whole
dope.
world as well. Um, Eastman and Laird, I had met. Uh, the Jim Steranko, the character
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I've got a story with
Um,
Jim Stewart, but yeah, he's definitely
yeah,
a character.
Neil Adams.
Cool,
Yeah, the list goes on.
cool,
I've met a lot through the years.
cool.
Um,
Well, you brought up your kids, or you brought up your son, and I want to say I was praising how in the back of the first issue of Stress Fracture that you have a letter column, and I'm a sucker for a good letter column, especially when the writer is like answering questions. But in the letter column, you mentioned how your two kids are your biggest inspirations, and how Czarface wouldn't exist without them. And you just said that your son's really big into comics. Like, have they turned you onto anything, whether it be comics or anime, cartoons, etc.? Like, have they put you onto any game?
yeah, my daughter has put me on to zombies and Labubu's and what else?
That's funny.
Yeah, but my son he's definitely the comic head of the house between the two of them. Um, but as far as is him introducing me to new characters, every once in a while he'll draw something that, and I'll ask who's that, and it'll be some really obscure Batman villain that I wasn't familiar with, and he
Hmm.
feels great. It feels great knowing that I don't know who it is, and he has an opportunity to tell me who it is. You know,
Yeah.
um, but I think a lot of the fun with him is he'll draw. Like the other day, I was talking to Sanford Green,
Hmm.
and I was talking to him over social media, and he had was revealing some dark side art that he drew,
Oh yeah, he's been
and
posting
he
that too.
yeah, and he was saying
Crazy fire.
how Mob Deep Shook Ones was Darkside's theme song, some type of connection between those
Yeah.
two things. And then I had said, I quoted Prodigy or paraphrased them. I said, rock you in your face, stab your brain with
The nose
Omega.
bone.
With the nose bone, but I said Omega beams
Oof,
because
bars.
I was tying it into Dark Side. And then I came home and my son had this dope picture of Dark Side he just happened to draw. And I was taking him to the dentist and Shook Ones came on the shuffle. And it was just a weird thing where, and I was trying to explain to Xavier, my son, how strange it was where I don't know. I was just trying to connect the things where he just happened to draw Dark Side that day, and Shook Ones came on, and this was the day after the Stanford Green exchange.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was
It's like kismet, right? Isn't that the
yeah,
phrase, kismet?
yeah, serendipitous kismet.
Yes, there we go.
Or something.
So what does your son and I guess what do your kids think about your career as a rapper and Czarface?
I think, you know, I think they appreciate it. I think there's throughout the years as they get older, um, I think they realize that this is Dad's job. He's here. But at the beginning of Czarface, my son was probably 4, and we had this opportunity to make a record with Inspector Deck, me and 7L and Inspector Deck, and make a whole album. But we didn't want to be called 7L and Esoteric and Inspector Deck, or Inspector Deck and Esoteric and 7. Nothing was catching, So I was with my son all the time because he was about 3 or 4 and just running amok. And the only way I could keep him engaged was with superheroes and action figures and Magneto and Stormtroopers and all these different characters that he would run around and play with. So 7L would send me beats, and DJ Premier, who produced a track on the first album, was sending me beats, and I would listen to them in the car with my son in the back seat of the car, and he would always interrupt me and be like, "What beat is this? What's this?" And to keep him engaged, I would say, "Oh, this is the Green Lantern beat, or this is
That's dope.
this is Black Manta beat, or something," and he'd be like, "Oh yeah," and he'd tune in because he was just visualizing things that were appealing to him. So it got to the point where I was like, we should come up with our own character, and I'm going to be able to make this fun for me and my son and make it work for the group with me, Deck, and 7L. So we spoke about it with Lamore Supreme, the artist, and we developed this character, and that made it easy for me to work on around my kid. He inspired me and helped me with a few things, and we sample him all over the album. So when you hear a little kid's voice, it's usually my son. If it's not my son, it's my daughter. But so you hear Czarface, it's him. So we're just kind of building a world, and I can stay connected to him doing what I love. And yeah.
That is extremely dope. Like I don't think I've heard the origin of Czarface broken down like that. But really quick, hearing you say like Green Lantern type beat, Black Manta type beat, I'm like, damn. R.I.P. to Dilla, but that sounds like some shit like a beat tape Dilla would make. When he's made all these like interesting thematic beat tapes. Where is the superhero type beat tape? That needs to happen.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll. I think I think that's a good idea. I think I'm gonna get cracking on that when we hang up.
So real quick, so how did you guys get to? How did you guys end up meeting Inspector Deck and getting him roped into the idea of starting another group? Like, yeah, what was the origin of, I guess, you guys meeting together and like pursuing, like, hey, let's make music together and build this brand together?
Yeah, we made our first collaborative record when we were just 7L and Esoteric. Our first album, or our first 12-inch, or second 12-inch or so. We wanted Inspector Deck on the record. We had this idea we were going to do a song, me, Inspector Deck, and Big L, and that was like, I already come to terms with the fact that I was going to get blown off the track regardless. but I was still excited about the idea of it. And we had a manager we were working with named Matt Saluka, who was also working at Loud, which was Deck's label. And so he was able to put us in touch with Deck pretty quickly. And this was 1998, 1999 or so. And we met up in Brooklyn, and we recorded the joint. He came through with a couple of guys, some Wu-Tang affiliates like Street Life, and we recorded the joint in 98, 99. And throughout the years following, me and 7L would send deck beats and kick ideas around, and we just continued a friendship. And then 2011 came around, and 7L had the idea to pitch Deck about doing a group record. And I said, are you crazy? He's going to do a whole album with us? No, he's not going to do a whole album with us. But George was like, yeah. 7L was like, yeah, it doesn't hurt to ask. And so I reached out to him. And then Deck was really receptive to the idea. And then we just did this one record and themed it around this character, Czarface. And then as that was as that was cooking, then my brain really started spinning, and the idea of the Czarface and the action figure and everything else just kind of grew from there. The comics, and we're off to the races. And now I'm really doing what I love, and it's like I can genuinely say that because I can't put it down. It's like an addiction.
That's powerful, man. I mean, the power of just asking, right? Just putting it out there in the universe and just seeing what happens, right? The worst he could have done is said no. But obviously, it went a different way, and here you guys are now. Hey, real quick, is the track that you guys did for forming Czarface, is that the 12th Chamber song? I was listening to that.
No, that's a song we did in between, in the meantime and in between time. The first song we did was called Speaking Real Words.
Okay.
And then we did that 12th Chamber joint somewhere in between before Czarface, and then Czarface came about. And the first tracks we did as Czarface, we didn't even know we were going to be called Czarface at that point. And then we kind of, once we had something going, I started thinking like, hey, we got to really, we can't put this out as two MCs and a DJ. We need something a little bit more, something people can grab onto. And here we are.
So, and I guess that leads me to my next question, because I told you at New York Comic Con, I complimented how I feel like the Czarface brand is, I mean, it's top tier, man. It's one of like my favorite brands in hip hop. I mean, it feels like a comic book character, a comic universe that's been around forever. Even though we're talking about, what 2011, 2013 was the first Czarface album, it feels like it belonged. It came from the Silver Age, and it's been here since then. And I love how you guys credit your in-house artist Lamar Supreme as like a member of the group, because I think that his contributions are integral, right? Like the imagery, the branding, the look and feel. I mean, like I told you, like I went doing all this research, I'm like now grabbing like, oh shit, I don't have that album. Oh, that comes with a comic. I'm gonna need that right there. Can you speak a little bit? Can you talk about how you guys got Lamar Supreme involved in his role in the whole Czarface ecosystem?
Yeah, I wish I could say it was this really like exciting endeavor to connect with him, but I really was looking for somebody to style and create this character Czarface and have it be an homage to the stylings of Jack Kirby. That era of a look of a character. And me and 7L, we met up with Lamar in New York, and we spoke to him for a while about what we were looking for.
Were you guys familiar with, where were you guys familiar with his work from? Like, I understand he's like a New York City based graffiti artist. Like, were you guys following him prior to?
Yeah. I would see his art and everything, and he's a very versatile artist. He can do a lot of different things. But I saw some of his art that were tributes to Jack Kirby himself, and I said, "Oh wow, he does a great Jack Kirby style. I want to talk to this guy because this is what I want. I want Czarface to be inspired and come from that era." And the first few records were really rooted in that. That's the direction Lamar was going in. So we spoke for a while about what we wanted the character to look like and represent. Some of the names like Ultron came up as inspirations.
Yeah.
And, like a Cylon from Battlestar Galactica, or Doom. And we came up with Czarface. And one of the funny things about it is his cape has a very Spawn vibe.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I introduced Lamore to Todd McFarlane at that party,
Cool.
and we joked with Todd about how Czarface stole Spawn's cape, and Todd's just so charming and so welcome. He was just like, he laughed it off.
That's cool.
It's weird because you never know how people are going to take things. And that could be a little bit of a difference between hip hop and comics. Because in hip hop, there was a time where you could not bite anything.
For sure.
The remnants of stealing someone's idea, it would
get you jacked up pretty good.
Yes. And this cape here on Czarface is a tribute to Spawn. So Todd McFarlane gave us the blessing.
That's dope. And I guess I'm going to put it into the universe. I would love to see a Czarface Spawn crossover. I know that Czarface has crossed over with you guys have done things with Marvel, with Venom and all of that, but I think a Czarface Spawn crossover would be gangbusters.
Me too. And I would do just about anything to make that happen. So maybe we'll see that down the line.
I gotta ask. So I'm praising like the branding, the visual identity of Czarface. I mean, you guys have really thought about it all. I mean, from the album art, this the lore behind Czarface, like the universe you guys are building, the supporting characters, the villains, but then also like small details on like the album cover, like Silver Age. You guys have Silver Age recordings everywhere. I mean, like it really does feel like such a precise homage to Silver Age comics and comic books, but like feeling really genuine in among it. And you brought up how like you're thinking about branding, action figures and licenses and all of that. I gotta say, man, Czarface has some of the dopest just merchandise out there. I mean, from the super. I was telling you, the Super 7 figures you guys have been doing have been awesome. You guys have blind boxes. I think there's like a Czarface mask you guys put out. There was some Saucony sneaker collab you guys did.
Yeah.
Saucony, thank you.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Czarface merch out there? And do you own all the Czarface stuff? Like, do you have one of everything?
I have most of them in the Czarchives. Yeah.
I'm stealing that. I'm using that, even if I'm not talking Czarface. Czarchives.
Well, like something like this was a gift. This is not. I get a lot of cool gifts from people that are. These aren't mass-produced things. These are one-of-ones, and or one of a few, and I keep them all kind of close by, and I love making the Saucony and my man Josh from Saucony designing the shoes. That was a lot of fun because that actually came with a Czarface action figure. Working with Super 7, they were able to produce a Czarface figure that was wearing the Saucony sneakers, and that came inside the shoe. So that was really fun, and we debuted that at New York Comic Con a few years before that. I think the figure, any one of the Czarface figures, though, this is a Czar Noir figure here. This was probably the most fun, or probably the biggest. What's the word for it? I can't think of the word for it, but in Cloak and Dagger, one of my other inspirations, the movie Cloak and Dagger with Dabney Coleman, there was a character named Jack Flack. It was the boy Henry Thomas from E.T.'s. He had an action figure, Jack Flack, and he carried him everywhere. It was like his imaginary friend, and kind of like kept all the bad energy away. And it was kind of like this role model of who he wanted his dad to be. So I was like, Czarface is, I want to make a figure for my kids and someone that, and it's Czarface. There's like different levels to my involvement with or my dedication to making sure Czarface things really resonate with people. It's more than just an action figure to me. It kind of symbolizes things that are really, really close and personal to me.
Well said. Yeah, I gotta say too, the I as a record collector too, I've got like two very expensive hobbies: comic book collecting. I toned down on the sneakers, but I was doing some damage on my wallet with the sneakers. But I can't stop collecting records too, and I appreciate when an artist does does a little something more with putting out physical media, right? Like we're in an age where you can stream any song, it's digital everything. But as a physical collector of many physical things, I do appreciate when a little more thought is put into the physical packaging, the merchandise. And like I said, you guys have that in spades. And I got to say, some of my favorite records you guys have put out uh, is the first weapon drawn in the Tsar Noir, specifically because they're an homage to some of my favorite comic book artifacts, the old Power Line records, where you could buy like a Spider-Man comic, but also have a instrumental album to go with it.
Yeah,
Power Records. Yeah, Power Records. Thank you so much. So you know what I'm saying? It's like the love and admiration you guys have for comic culture it's so palpable in all of these, like all the things that you guys do, man. So I salute the passion that you guys put out there.
Thanks. I think those Power Records, those have always been very popular to sample in hip hop records too, going back to the 80s and 90s. So that also connects hip hop in a way, because
That's a good point.
We would have these records from our childhood, but we could also unearth them to grab some samples of somebody saying like, I'm a mad scientist or whatever, and you could put that in the record, but it also came with a comic. And so with First Weapon Drawn and Tsar Noir, we were just emulating that and paying homage to that Power Records. Definitely.
Yeah. Well said. Okay, so let's get to talking about Stress Fractures. It's the brand new 5-issue limited series that is being put out. Go ahead.
What's that? Those figures behind you? You have. I like that record there, but that's Super What?
Okay. I got Super What, the vinyl behind me. I've got this is the Thanos from the Marvel Legends Gamerverse pack, the 2-pack.
Nice.
My homeboy bought it from Target. These bitches were expensive. It was like $50 for the 2-pack. I was like, I just want Thanos. I bet you could sell Psylocke for $50, and he damn sure did. So I got Thanos behind me. I got my boy showing some love to McFarlane Toys, right? The Doomsday. I'm sorry, not Doomsday. The Dark Side figure they put out too. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. Yeah, I guess toys is the other thing too.
It's funny that I asked you, because I was thinking you were going to go over to the Public Enemy ones. To your
Sure.
There.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, so this is from so rest in peace to Ed Piskor, but is this Super 7 too? I think this might be Super.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
I don't know. Let's see. Let me take a
look. You got the same too. Yeah, I'm yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm true about this. When comics and hip hop, especially when they collide like this, it's like I gotta grab it. I got a Jay Dilla vinyl figure behind me too. But
nice, that's dope. Yeah, I just wanted to pull the box out on you as you were pulling the box out on me.
That was dope. Touche, good sir. Touche.
Yes.
But all right, you got a brand new comic series, Czarface, Stress Fracture is being published by Z2 Comics, which, I mean, you've collaborated with them quite a few times. But I guess what adventure are you taking us on in this new series? What can Czarface fans expect from the new Stress Fracture series?
They can expect a lot of pulse pounding action, and Czarface is, well, we introduced a character named Stress Eater, which is in the hip hop world, that's me and Kool Keith and 7L. Yep. And so it's kind of like a spin-off character, as we build the world of Czarface with enemies and good guys, and with when Super 7 put out this Czarface blind box, there were so many characters in different colorways from the same Czarface mold, because there's Czarface and there's Tsar Noir, but then with Czarface, so these different characters, like this guy here, this guy, and this guy, that's a Hellzar guard, which is another paying respects to Spawn, and this is Frankie Pulitzer, and so these characters that are in the back of this book and in the blind boxes, they come to life in the comic itself, and so I'm using the pre-existing of these figures to tie them into this actual story. And Dr. Yorgo, who is one of Czarface's oldest enemies, is in this book here, but he dons the Czarface-like armor, and his name in the book is Czarface, but it's spelled with a T, Tzar. So he's Czarface as well. It's almost like a Bizarro thing, but this guy's much more manipulative and evil in a intellectual sense. And Stress Eater appears in the book, and Czarface is, he's trying to save this kid that's been abducted by the forces of evil. And throughout the series, we'll see where it goes.
And you chose, and Philippe Flores is the artist for the interior work, which I thought his art fits the theme, the overall like Czarface brand really well. Like I'm getting like big, obviously like Silver Age comic vibes. Meets Jack Kirby, meets a little bit of like that Peter Laird, and even like some Tom Scioli, Jim Rugg vibe. If you're a fan of any of all of that stuff, I definitely think Philippe Flores is the artist you should be checking out. But how has he chosen to bring this chapter of Czarface to life?
Really, I came across his art and fell in love with it. I love it's just like uh, it's strange how easily it's the gift and the curse of social media and the internet, and how easy it is to find everything. And you don't really have to work for as much as you as you used to. Um, so I came across his art on Instagram, and I said, "Hey, this guy's dope, and he's versatile, and he can do characters from the '50s. He can draw depictions of them from the '60s, the '70s, the '80s. He can really is very talented, and he was down to work on the book. And I wish it was more romanticized than that, but that's kind of how it came together. And we kind of hit it off, and I would write the stories and the panel breakdowns, and he'd send the breakdowns back to me in pencil, and I'd look at them, and there's no better feeling. I've said this before, and I'm sure any comic book writers felt this way, but seeing your ideas just kind of come to life in art from someone else's hand, and you're like, oh yeah, when I wrote in the notes that I wanted Czarface to be busting through this wall and grabbing the plane out of the sky or something like that, and he just makes it happen. It's so rewarding. It's such a cool thing because you can do anything you want if you have the imagination and you're working with an artist that can capture that. You can come up with the most insane scenarios and pay homage to whatever you want. If you want Easter eggs or you want anything you can do, and you can think of, if you have an artist that's down for the cause, you can get it done. And so working on the comics has been a lot of fun.
How does your process, like, how different is your approach or process to writing writing raps for an audio landscape versus like a visual landscape like comics? Do you do anything different when it comes time to put like pen to paper?
Honestly, I don't really write my raps.
That's right. Stream of thought.
If I come up with a few ideas, I might jot them into notes. But as far as recording hip hop, the lyrics are in my head, and I usually put the beat on and loop it for 10 minutes, and I kind of work my way through the rhyme so many times until I have it fleshed out. I mean, I could write the rhyme if I wanted to, but I just feel like I skip a step by getting it in my head. And sometimes if it's something that's a little bit tricky or tongue twisty or something, I just say, and I get really frustrated. And then I walk over to my computer and I type it into the body of an email. It's so ridiculous. I type it into the body of an email and I email it to my phone. And then I go to the thing and I look at it off my phone. That's very rare. And I'm well aware that I could just type it into my phone.
Sure.
And just have it there. But there's just some type of, I've got a lot of weird hangups that I can't shake. And it's just my process. In terms of writing comics, that's all, which might even sound stranger. I write them in the body of an email. So I'll set up, page 1, panel 1, and I'll write a descriptor for that, and then I'll go through it. And then when that's done, I'll put it into Word or I'll put it into Google Docs and see everything that I could have, misspelled or whatever, certain things. And the dialogue doesn't get fully massaged until the art is back anyway. So I'll have some placeholders here and there. But I just feel it's strange, back in the day when I did actually put the pen to paper to write rhymes, it was the notebook, and you write and you fill up a notebook with all these rhymes. Now, and that was a comfort. Now the comfort is the body of an email. It's so bizarre as I'm saying it out loud. It's always been in my head, but it's like I can open up my Gmail and I feel comfortable typing there. Where, you'd think somebody like I don't know, Stephen King or somebody.
Yeah.
He has his way to write, and
Sure.
I'm not by any means comparing myself to Stephen King, but the first writer that popped in my head, I'm sure he's not writing his novels in the body of an email.
Yeah.
It just kind of where it's I've learned out of laziness or just refusal to adapt. I think Microsoft Word was like, when I first started writing these things, I was like, how do I get Microsoft Word? Actually, when you and I were setting this up, I kind of proved some of my Luddite like tendencies.
No,
You know?
that was not on you. That's all on Riverside, but that's for another day. I guess that's I'm sure it is not lost on you. This kind of like I don't know if we want to call it full circle moment, or like just like this career progression where you're saying that like comics were your first love, and then you got into hip hop, and then became a rapper, a full-time musician. Now it's almost like now from there you're going back to comic books as a writer. I mean, like, how does that feel to know that you are now directly involved in this art form that you cherished in your younger years, that played a huge part in like your music career? Now like you're able to like play this completely different role, but that's still in the same medium. I mean, I think it's kind of fascinating. What do you think?
Yeah, I do, and oftentimes I ignore it because my head is buried in the work, and I'm trying to figure this thing out for the music, or this thing out for the comics, or this thing out for the merchandise. But I have friends like my buddy Mad Soul and my buddy Adam 12, two people who most recently have kind of taken me aside and taken the time to say, um, a lot of people's uh, dreams and goals, they haven't worked out just the way they wanted them to, and yours had worked out just the way you wanted it to. I think you should take some time to appreciate that.
Hmm.
And I thought about it, and I stopped, and because I'm so focused on moving forward and not kind of taking it all in, that I appreciating it is something I still have to allow time to do, because I constantly feel like I'm falling behind if I'm not working. So I keep working and working and pushing and pushing. But um, yeah, I've heard from a couple of people lately, like, look at this and look at that.
Yeah.
Like, aren't you happy?
That's
You had a cameo in Venom and music in the movie Venom 2 and Venom 3. Like,
Yeah.
how do you feel? And I feel great. But what's next? And I wish there was something that I could turn off and just chill and watch the Celtics. But usually I'm thinking of what's next for Czarface.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes you have to force yourself to stop and smell the roses and just appreciate what you're doing. Like, I mean, you said it earlier, like, you love what you're doing, and I think it shows in the end product for sure. What's it like working with Z2? What are they like as a publisher and collaborator, and how do they help you put out the best, your best?
Yeah, Z2 has been the absolute best in terms of working with me and giving me opportunity to do things that I never thought would be possible. And that's breaking into the world of comics and writing a graphic novel for Cool Keith, or writing the Czarface graphic novel. This series is not through Z2. However, this is through another company. But Czar Comics is what you see on the label there. It's through a company called Zero Zero. But Z2 has been responsible for so much of these comic achievements and accolades that I've been able to enjoy, just as the love of creating. They've really helped open a lot of doors and put my writing in front of a lot of people. So it's my comic book writing, which is a lot of fun.
Right. Look, you brought up how friends and family are like, hey, you're doing great things. Like, you got to, take time to admire it. And I think I'm going to use that as a reason to pivot into this segment I like to call the Short Box Friends and Family segment. And this is where I shut up for a little bit and let some other folks ask the questions. And
Okay.
I want to start off with this special guest. The special guest that I reached out to submit a question for you via voicemail. And I'll see if you can figure out who it is before he says his name. So let's go to this first voicemail I got.
Yo, what's up, Eso? Hope all is well. I got two questions for you. First question. Yeah, we all know that rap music has such a huge storytelling aspect to it. Do you see parallels between the creative process of writing a comic and writing a verse? And second question is a simple one. Like, we all know that Thanos got to be a hip hop head. What would he be bumping on a daily? Yeah, so those are my two questions, man. Congrats on all things Czarface, and yo, we got to do a comic again. We got to do another comic together. Peace.
I thought that he had said his name on that voicemail, but do you recognize the voice? Do you know who that was?
Well, he said work on a comic again.
Yeah.
So that it could have been Mike Del Mundo.
Ding, ding, ding. That's right. SO. I reached out to Mike Del Mundo because I mean he's done some great, he did a really dope ass. Speaking about your love of dogs, there you go. You got it on camera. Yeah. Mike Del Mundo, man. So I reached out to him, asked him to send in a voicemail, and he was kind enough to send in two questions for you.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I'm so busy reveling in the joy of identifying the voice that I only remember the second question. Do you remember the first one?
Let me just press. I'm gonna play it just to hear the first part again.
Yo, what's up, Eso? Hope all is well. I got two questions for you. First question. Yeah, we all know that rap music has such a huge storytelling aspect to it. Do you see parallels between the creative process of writing a comic and writing a verse? And second.
Okay, I think. I think you already answered the first one of my previous question, but if you want to add more to it, feel free to. But I would absolutely love to hear you answer the second question of what is Thanos playing in the tape deck? Because I mean, you brought up how Sanford Green mentioned, he was listening to Shook Ones, and that being the theme song for Darkseid. What's the theme song for Thanos?
Yeah. Well, knowing that Mike is about as pure, as much of a hip hop purist as I am, it's a question that I'd have to really think about. So, well, Thanos, if you think he's all about, the irony is that Mike also did our Czarface hip hop variant with Marvel.
Yeah, yep, the
And
Thanos
it's
one.
Thanos #1. So this is great. Isn't this kismet again, in
Yeah.
a sense, or coincidence? I would say that Thanos is listening to Fear of a Black Planet by Public Enemy, and looking to restore the balance of. I have no idea what I'm saying.
I was like waiting for. I was like, oh, he's got a good justification. Here we come.
I was about to just start freestyling an
Yeah.
idea. That was the best record I could think of at the time. I think sometimes putting the such grounded street level music into the space of such a cosmic character can get a little bit tricky.
For sure.
Um,
If I may interject and throw the one that came to mind for me was I think maybe because you said Gangstar earlier, Above the Clouds. I think just I think I'm going for vibe and something about like how kind of astral and outer space that beat is. You notice how cold that
yeah,
premiere beat is. I think
yeah,
Thanos would probably be rocking that, and he's above the clouds too.
yes, yes, exactly. I think that's a good answer. I'm going to take your answer. And as far as his first question, which I think I answered what you had asked a little bit, but I'll expand on it. I think writing hip hop and writing comics for me, in terms of my voice, there's some snarkiness and quippiness and dad joke wordplay that can be used in both. You know what I mean? If you're speaking with someone that's always sarcastic, like Spider-Man or Deadpool in that type of way, a lot of that can go into your arrogance when you're rhyming on the mic, or your know-it-all type of approach to rhyming. So there's a lot of parallels there. And in the book I did with Mike, that Mike drew, he added his own little things in there as well. Like there was a dumpster or a trash barrel somewhere, in the book, and then underneath it he wrote "straight garbage," which is just something that you you would identify with something that's whack, So
Shit.
he
I
put his
had
own twist on things in the book, which is just great. I love that guy, and I love the book that we made, and hope to work with him again.
I had no idea that this is a full on. Okay, I thought it was just like he did the cover, but for those listening, Czarface Dog Days of Tomorrow, which was released this year apparently.
No, it's like 2019,
Okay.
maybe.
Okay, they got the date wrong, but Mike Del Mundo doing interiors is always like it's not as common as it used to. So whenever I do see that he's done interior artwork, I get pretty excited. I'm actually gonna order a copy of this like ASAP. So big shout outs to Mike. Oh man, and you know what? Speaking about Mike, I had a chance to interview him this year too. And Mike, all of his hip hop variant covers are some of my favorite out of the whole bunch. But his Thanos homage to the Czarface album, what is it? Every Hero Needs a Villain is definitely one of my favorites. And I want to also extend a compliment too that the first issue of Stress Fracture, your sense of comedy and humor is so apparent in this and that was one thing I had made note of, is that it feels hip hop in that way, where it's got that snark, that kind of talking shit vibe to it. But man, something about Czarface where I'm still like, man, is he a hero or is he a villain? I like that he represents like our best intentions, but also sometimes our worst like attributes. Like you're not always 100% good on any given day. Sometimes you're an asshole, and I kind of like that he is grounded and feels real in that way. And I think your voice as a rapper, that confidence, that braggadocious, that shit talking, comes through in this first issue in your writing.
Thanks. I appreciate that, man. Appreciate that.
Of course. All right. And then I got one more question received from a Shortbox friend and family. This is from my guy, Joshua Facchetti. I told him I was having you on the show. He's like, bro, I fucking love Czarface. I love Eso. I actually, chat with him on Instagram all the time. But he wrote in, he said, Badr, I'd love to hear you ask Eso if now that the Czarface world is really fleshed out, does he think the music still influences the story and characters at this point, or vice versa? Like by this point, does the story kind of dictate what vibe a record is going to have?
No, I feel like the story, there's a lot of one-off stories in the Czarface comic world, and there's a lot of different directions we go in with the actual hip hop. You know what I mean? They don't always intersect perfectly. That would be a feat that we'd probably have 2 albums out instead of however many we have out, because having them intertwine on such a conceptual level would be a lot of work that might not always make room for what we want out of a hip hop record, where we want people like this, listening to some of the punchlines or just the overall energy of the song. And if you're telling a story, it's not always Czarface the character and Czarface the music. They're not always running parallel, right? They go in different directions. So it's kind of a whole universe, but they're in different orbits.
Well said. And speaking about my guy Josh, I want to give him credit because he was the first one to point out to me about your cameo in the Venom movies, and then later on put me onto game that you got a song, talking about Venom, the star of that movie, Tom Hardy. You have a song with Tom Hardy under his rap alias Frankie Pulitzer. As recent as last year, you guys put out a song called Null and Void featuring Method Man with Frankie Pulitzer. You got a verse on there as well. And I think many people might be surprised to hear that, not only is Tom Hardy a rapper, but he's also, a huge hip hop head, obviously. Can you talk about your friendship with Tom Hardy? How did you guys meet? And I mean, what's his hip hop, knowledge and love like, or fandom like?
Yeah, well, Frankie Pulitzer, it's a common misconception that Tom Hardy and Frankie Pulitzer are the same person. Frankie Pulitzer is someone else entirely, who is a hip hop head, but he's younger than Tom. Tom is a guy that appreciates the hip hop that I came up with, that Inspector Deck came up with, the Wu-Tang, everything that you want to talk about hip hop from the 90s, 2000s. He knows it. And if he doesn't know it and it's dope and you show it to him, he gets why it's dope. And he, really is solely responsible for putting any Czarface material into the world of Venom. So he's responsible for making some of my wildest dreams and goals come true. And Frankie Pulitzer, he's a guy from out here who has a gruff voice, and he's never met Tom, but he's been in the mix because we've had him featured on records that are in Venom.
Huh. So I guess, well, where does that? Because I mean, I'll admit confusion. I just didn't look into it that much, so I apologize. I guess where does that where did that I guess rumors start that Frankie Pulitzer was actually Tom Hardy? Was it just like a? It sounds like just a miscommunication thing, and people just ran with the story.
Yeah, well, Tom used to rap back in the 90s.
That might be it. Okay.
And he had a situation with the Fugees going. So he had he had such a talented guy. So he had a lot of opportunities to do this, do that,
Sure.
You know what I mean? And he followed his passion, which is acting, of course. So he did have a background as an MC, but that was in the 90s. And, I talk to him pretty frequently, and he laughs about it. And he thinks that, those were good times, but he leaves emceeing to the pros.
There we go.
And that's in this situation is Czarface. So we're very fortunate that he digs what we do. And yeah, I think things go viral and people run with it, and they, you can't stop. You keep repeating this thing, and then suddenly it gets in the zeitgeist, and people just buy it.
Word. I appreciate you clearing that up. I truly do. On the topic of Hollywood, I've got two more questions for you. But on the topic of Hollywood, one of the most, the biggest names, most premier names out there right now when we think about like comic books in Hollywood and movie space, James Gunn recently posted the threads about how crazy it is that hip hop is absent from the top 40 charts, like a first time in the last 35 years, and went on to call this year one of the best years in hip hop. He shouted out rappers like La Russell, Open Mike Eagle, Earl Sweatshirt, and a whole gang of others. But some people may not know that James Gunn has been a day one Czarface fan for quite a while. You actually posted a picture of James Gunn holding, bring it back to Mike Del Mundo, big shout to Mike Del Mundo, in that Thanos homage, James Gunn holding a record of Czarface, Every Hero Needs a Villain. And I was curious to know if you've ever had a chance to meet James Gunn or chop it up about hip hop. You said that he's like, he is a huge hip hop head. You obviously had the receipts, but ever had a chance to meet James Gunn?
Yeah, just over the social media. And I think he might have come across Czarface via his brother, Sean Gunn.
Yeah. He's a huge hip hop head too.
Yes.
He was just on a podcast the other day talking about how much he loves MF Doom. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So he loves hip hop. They both love hip hop, and James is the man. He's we talk every once in a while, but it's usually me heaping praise on his moves in the world of cinema. You know what I mean?
Cool.
Whether it's Guardians or Superman or whatever, and whenever I see him wearing his Czarface shirt, it just puts a pep in my step. So
hell yeah,
I'm awaiting for my breakout role in any DC film. I feel like anyone that comes into contact with him, he probably hears something to that degree, and people get his. But for me to have a small cameo in Venom bumping into Tom Hardy, I'd have to even it out and have a cameo in a DC film. I'll pay my flight. I'll board myself. Just let me out there for 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this, because, I mentioned in the beginning how it like you're part of so many different groups. You've had a hand in so many different groups. You also have a ton of collabo albums. Some of my favorites include, the two projects you got with the late great MF Doom, but also Ghostface Killah. Do you have any stories about working with MF Doom or Ghostface Killah that you could share?
Yeah, I have stories of both, and they're both. I would say they're both every bit like they are on record. You know what I mean? Like these ideas that people have in their head, and this exciting mystique that's been built up, that all comes out, and it's you can like speaking with ghosts, it's like you're listening to a skit on a record, because we all grew up. I didn't meet ghosts until the 2000s or something, but I'd already lived with all the Wu-Tang stuff in the 90s. And, you know, when you meet him, it's just like, wow, this is really him. You know what I mean? And that personality and charisma just kind of, it's powerful, you know. Um, and Doom is just I've met Doom in the 90s as well, but or back to, let's see, what year would it be? I don't know, the late 90s. Sometimes the open mics in NYC, like the New Eurekan Poets Cafe, and a few different venues when Zev Love X, the his original name in KMD, when he was transitioning to MF Doom, when he was coming out as a new alias Doom, we happened to be kind of on the scene around that time that he was first coming out, before the mask, when he was wearing like a stocking cap over his face, just kind of concealing his identity. It was such a cool time because, it's learning that this guy that you would watch on MTV, MTV Raps from KMD, Zev Love X, is now this filterless, villainous uh, character named MF Doom, and the legend just grew, and he's now immortalized. So
I mean, is it? I almost feel stupid asking this, but how much of that, Doom's approach to, like, because I think about like that branding too of his, like that mystique, that him playing into the villain. I mean, the things he would do on stage, of having like a, he wouldn't even be on stage, like all these different like kind of like antics, with full respect, that he would do. How much of that, I guess, were you inspired by when it came to Czarface, and like him kind of being like this kind of, how much of Doom's, I guess, DNA were you like, man, okay, I want to borrow this and pay homage to that?
I think Doom was a bigger inspiration to me uh, earlier, before Czarface.
Hmm.
So really from the jump. So
Okay.
as far back as you can go with Doom, he was doing whatever I was doing before me. You know what I mean? So anything
Yeah.
that he would do that was dope, it was something I was following up on. I can't think of a reference. There's a touch point where I'm like, oh yeah, I was doing that before. No, nothing. I've
Sure.
always been Doom first. Whether these creative samples, sound bites in a song, putting them into actual lyrics, and
Hmm.
so many different things. And he beat me to the punch everywhere. But that's just a testament to his brilliance. Now, when the first Czarface record came out, we came up with the idea of Czarface. Doom was not really at the forefront of our mindset
Hmm.
until the record came out, and people started saying, and some of my close
Hmm.
friends were saying, like, yo, this kind of reminds me of MF Doom.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it was the music or the fact that it was a character.
I think, yeah.
See, I think what people miss when they're looking for connections between MF Doom and Czarface in that sense is that MF Doom is MF Doom with the mask on, rapping. You know what I mean? Whereas Czarface, there's no instance of the character Czarface rapping. Czarface is this figurehead like Eddie is for Iron
Hmm.
Maiden. You know what I mean?
Look, those two projects, Czarface meets Metal Face and Super Wet, which I've got right behind me, to me are the ultimate embodiment of the overlap in the Venn diagram between comics and hip hop. And not just from like the visuals, but also the rapping, the topics, just like the samples, the production. I think like it's such a perfect embodiment of like what these two worlds, you get out of that. So,
Yeah.
kudos to you. I think that's great. Man. So I gotta ask, man. You guys, I've got the Czarface discography pulled up, and what's your favorite Czarface album? Like, if you had to give like a listener right now that's like, hey, I love comics. This sounds really interesting. I want to just jump in on one album. Where would you point them towards?
That's a good question because there are a lot of songs that I like on particular albums more than other songs on certain,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? So it's like,
Sure.
I'm kind of the mindset where certain songs jump out to me, but full bodies of work, I guess I would have to say Every Hero Needs a Villain.
Nice.
And that would be the first collaboration with us and Doom, on that record. I like that one. I like Artificial Intelligence. I love
Mm,
Super What. Um, Zarmageddon. I don't know. We wouldn't put them out if we didn't fall in
yeah,
love with them. You know what I mean?
for sure.
again, it's something that we love doing. It's less of a job and more of a uh, some just something we can't turn off, and are happy to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, good answer. All right, and this is my last question. I always like to save this one for the last part. And this one is keeping in mind like the aspiring writers, artists, creators out there that are listening and want to amplify their message and get in front of like more just get their work out to more people. What piece of advice would you give to an aspiring, whether it be a comic creator, musician, writer, etc., whatever it may be, that you wish you would have known prior to starting your career? Like, what piece of advice would have really helped you out early on to maybe overcome, a lot of the bullshit and hurdles that comes with the industry?
Well, I think trusting your first instincts on a lot of scenarios with what you want to do, and not let other voices into your head, and follow your path, and be yourself as much as you can. There have been times in my career where I felt like I wasn't being 100% true to myself. I was probably putting on a little bit more of a tough guy act than how I really am as a person. But I mean, I might have been a little tougher around the edges then, but I grew out of that. You know what I mean? And I think at this point, I'm probably over the past decade plus, I've been the most comfortable in my skin, just being myself. And I think every artist should work on being themselves, and you can probably wind up, well, you stand a better chance of doing something that feels natural and something you enjoy, and hopefully can reap some reward from and buy some dog food with.
I love that. We started with dogs and we're ending with dogs. And with that being said, ladies and gents, this is the Shortbox Podcast. And we just finished talking to Esoteric about all things Czarface. We talked about the music, how the group came together, the different albums, the merchandise. And we also talked about the brand new comic series, Czarface Stress Fracture, which is available on czarcomics.com. You can either buy the first issue or issue by issue, or all 5 issues in a bundle. Once again, on czarcomics.com. I'll have a link to that in the show notes, as well as links to Esso's social media pages, so you can give him a follow and keep up to date with what he's got going on. Esso, this has been fantastic. I appreciate your time. If there's an opportunity to have you back, I'd love to have you back.
Thanks. I appreciate that, man. Appreciate that.